So today we're going to be talking about terrain and the uses that they have for Age of Sigmar. So if you're a player coming over from AOS 1 going into AOS 2, you're going to know that there's going to be some considerable differences with terrain and how you use them in your games. So I guess the first thing we should look at is the actual rules themselves. So as we all know by now, the terrain rules have changed. So you're looking at the scenery table on page 235 of the rulebook, and yeah, just have a look at the table. Yeah, and they've just changed considerably. So damned, I mean, you still take D3 mortal wounds, but instead of getting +1 hit, you're re-rolling hit rolls of 1. Arcane, get +1 to unbind or casting. 3 is inspiring, so you get 1 bravery. Deadly, so this one's a big change as well. So I mean, you're still copying D3 mortal wounds, but at least you're not rolling for every model, and on a roll of 1 they're slain. Yeah, just keeping in mind that it's when you finish a normal move or a charge move within 1 inch of this piece of terrain. So no matter what, you're only going to be rolling 1s on this table. And of course mystical as well. So before, you know, you rolled a 1 and pretty much the unit was stuffed for the rest of the turn, whereas now it's just on a 6 you get a 6+ ward save, or on top of your not regular saves as well. So yeah, that works on wounds and mortal wounds as well. And lastly, you got sinister, so you're subtracting 1 from the bravery of characteristic of units while they're within 1 inch of any sinister terrain features. So yeah, I guess the one major change as well is that the range is all 1 inch from pieces of terrain. You know, a lot of guys, they like to put plates or bases on their piece of terrain. You can always have a discussion with your opponent about how you want to play it. I mean, are you going to measure from just the actual piece of scenery, or are you going to measure from the base as well? I always recommend just measuring from the actual piece of terrain, like from the wall, apart from the plate. You know, it's come up quite often in games against other people, so it's I reckon it's important to, you know, go through the rules, talk to your opponent before playing a game, and seeing how you want to treat different pieces of terrain. Of course, also recommend rolling for scenery right at the start of the game before you choose sides, because knowing what type of terrain piece you're going to have on your side of the deployment zone, really important to which side you're going to choose. So next up, covered obstacles and garrisons in this in the new rule book as well, which I think is pretty good. You know, whereas before there was a bit of a grey area, but now they actually noted down in the rule book itself. So obstacles. Some terrain features are obstacles that block attacks to target that lie beyond them. When this is the case, it will be noted on the war scroll for the terrain feature. So yeah, it's built into the war scroll already, so it's going to tell you whether or not it's an obstacle. And also it's the same for garrison units. Can it be garrison? Can you not garrison it? So yeah, that's, again, it removes that grey area. So with obstacles, when a missile weapon targets a enemy unit that has all of its models within 1 inch of an obstacle, then they receive cover. So yeah, it's a pretty simple add-on, but it's add-on nonetheless. You know, it's something that you have to keep in mind when you're putting, say, a character nearby. He may not have lookout sir, so because let's say your unit of 5 liberators or 5 brutes are more than 3 inches away from him, and you're going to be using obstacles to try and get that cover save. For garrison units, it tells you which terrain feature you can actually garrison, so that's always nice. So a unit can be set up as a garrison at the start of a battle if the terrain feature is wholly within the unit's territory. Alternatively, a unit can garrison the terrain feature instead, making a normal move if all of its models are within 6 inches of the terrain feature and there are no enemy units. So yeah, I mean, it gives you, you know, a clear guide as to how you can actually enter that building and garrison it. It also tells you where you should be measuring from, so you should be measuring from the actual terrain piece itself. So say you've got a Witch Fate Tor hanging around, yeah, you're going to be measuring from the the actual building itself, even if, regardless of whether or not, you know, you're a big footprint or a big sized unit, you're still just using the walls as a place to measure from. So whenever you're attacking a unit that's garrisoning a building, you're subtracting 1 from the hit rolls. So you're getting pretty good benefits. So yeah, those are your basic rules for terrain and some of the generic stuff that you can just add onto the table. Some people have asked about the scenery dice. You can use the scenery dice from GW, which they released along with the AS2 release, but I still recommend the bad dice. The scenery dice is, you know, it's good quality, plus it's actually written and it's not an icon, so you don't have to look up that icon also. Yeah, it's actually the word itself on the dice itself. If you guys are keen on getting these bad dice scenery dice, I'll just post the link on the show notes. So next up, we're going to be talking about the actual War Scroll terrains. Now lately I've had a bit of a bug for narrative games, so I've been using the a couple of the new War Scroll terrains. Nothing too fancy, but you will notice from the previous edition that the rules are so much simpler. They're a lot easier. Less bookkeeping, that's for sure. I also failed to mention that the actual rules that I just mentioned beforehand for the generic terrains like Dam, Mystical and all that, that's actually just in the rulebook, in the core rules. So you can download that anytime. But the actual War Scrolls for terrain, they're in the General's Handbook. So yeah, a lot of the rules have been revised to fit in with AOS 2. And to me, I think they're a lot better. I mean, like I said earlier, there's less bookkeeping. You don't have to look it up as much as soon as you play with them a couple of times, because the rules are so simple and narrowed down. If you play it enough, then you should be able to remember most of it. So, say for example, the Azorite Ruins, it's only got one set of rules, and that in the description it says it's just an obstacle, so you're getting a cover save as long as your character or the model is within 1 inch of that. And yeah, one of the major changes as well is Baleful Realm Gate. So it's treated as an obstacle, so again, as long as your units are within 1 inch and has blocked sight to the enemy unit that's targeting it, you're going to get cover save. Whereas before, you know, the rules for the Realm Gates was pretty long, if I do say so myself. But now it's just so much shorter, so much easier to remember. At the start of your movement phase, you can use one Baleful Realm Gate to transport 1 unit from your army. In order to do so, the unit must be wholly within 6, and a friendly wizard or priest must be within 6 of the Realm Gate. So whereas before it was just 3 inches. If this is the case, remove the unit from the battlefield and set it up wholly within 6 of another Realm Gate and more than 9 inches away from enemy models. This counts as the unit's move for that phase. So there's no more rolling for dangerous terrain. Don't have to roll 2 scenery dice just to generate what kind of special effects it has. So yeah, just so much more simple. In narrative games, I 100% approve of people using these War Scroll terrains, and I highly recommend it. Look, they're a lot of fun. They're very different. But yeah, it just adds character to your game. You know, it adds another layer of tactics to your games as well. So yeah, you should 100% check out the Scenery War Scrolls. They're up on the Games Workshop website as well. Worksite. What am I saying? And if you've got the General's Handbook, yeah, they're in the book as well. Setting up terrain. So this is another contentious issue. How much terrain should you use on a table? Personally, I like to use at least 1 piece of terrain for every 3x3 on the board. You know, it fills up the table a little bit. I always like to set up terrain towards the middle. In the old rules, they used to highlight... Sorry about that. Yeah, they used to highlight the actual setup of the terrain itself. So, you know, they used to make you roll a dice for each 3x3 section, and they used to tell you whether or not there was 1, 2 or 3 pieces, or if not any at all. So, yeah, I think now is so much easier. Set it up the way you want it. Yeah, always talk to your opponent about it. But personally, yeah, I'd like to have at least 1 piece for every 3x3, maybe even 7. 6 to 9 is, you know, a good start. Using the War Scrolls, I have to admit, when I first started playing AOS, didn't really use it that much. But as soon as you play it more, man, you realize that, yeah, it's very simple, very easy to learn, easy to remember, and they're just going to be so much easier to remember now because there's less rules. So just a quick rundown with terrain again. So yeah, the very first thing you should do, talk to your opponent about terrain, how you're going to measure it, where you're going to measure from. If it's just generic terrain, you should always discuss about what's going to be an obstacle and what's not. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to be saying that most things are going to be, yeah, obstacles. Yeah, and roll the dice before you pick sides, as the piece of terrain will always dictate where you deploy, or even choose where you choose sites from. Always recommend using wall scroll terrain. Yeah, it's just so much fun. It just adds that layer of tactics. If you play your narrative games, then yeah, it adds character, not just to your table, but to your games as well. Yeah, the more you use it, the more you remember it. So yeah, use it often. Constantly look up the rules, and as long as your opponent is cool with it. So that's all I have for today. Just a quick rundown on terrain. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Just a quick one. So we'll keep in touch for next time. Put up another core rules and playability video. If you got any suggestions, let me know, and I'll look it up and look into it. Thanks for watching.